A Quiet Passion is a biographical film about well-renowned 19th century poet Emily Dickinson, witty, intellectually independent, free-thinking, ahead of her time, and immensely talented poet whose genius only came to be recognized after her death. Her reclusiveness and deep attachment to her close-knit family, along with her unique manners, or better yet lack of manners, and spiritual convictions that she held on to tightly, struggled with, and that transcended in her poetry, are brought to life in this perfectly executed, elegant film. Now I have to confess something to you people. I am a person who up until this point has had absolutely zero interest in poetry. None. Not at all. Not even in the slightest. But wouldn't you know it, as the universe sometimes works in very strange ways, while discussing the subject of depression with my girlfriend recently, she introduced me to one of Emily Dickinson's poems, and I was actually quite intrigued by the frankness, the simplicity, and just the melancholic nature of the poem. And wouldn't you know it, I'm planning to use that very same poem now for a short film I'm planning to do, which may or may not materialize, and also this very excellent biographical film about her life just came out. So, wouldn't you know it, sometimes things connect in some very unexpected ways in life. Now, from a filmmaking standpoint, this is really not anything all that out of the ordinary. It's pretty standard biographical film, but really don't let that statement discourage you, because it just might be one of the best biopics I personally have ever seen. Yeah, it does present us with the entire life of Emily Dickinson in a very chronological and in a very linear fashion, from her youth until her death, and it does hit most of the major checkpoints of her life, but it doesn't feel episodic. It's something I usually have a problem with in most biographical films. It's very fluid, it's very natural, it doesn't feel disjointed in the slightest. It's a very calm and very quiet film that really doesn't treat any big major turning point in her life as anything incredibly bombastic or earth-shattering or incredibly life-altering. No, the film pretty much chooses to take a backseat and to really let the script and the acting shine. And this is incredibly apparent from the get-go. The film opens up with a magnificent scene. I couldn't even have asked for anything better. We see a young Emily Dickinson standing still in the middle of a chairless schoolroom in her tyrannically Puritan Christian school, as her colleagues are moving either to the left or to the right after being asked by their teacher in just what way they want to be saved by God. And she remains standing still in the middle, and she says, "Saved by God? I am not even awakened yet. How may I repent?" Indeed, she was pretty agnostic and pretty witty already at this point in her life, and she just became very disillusioned by the religious revival and fervor surrounding her school, and eventually decided to enter church going altogether, her family eventually coming and rescuing her, so to speak, taking her back to their home, where she would eventually end up living for the rest of her life. Despite the many losses, failures, and disappointments that would plague her throughout her life, she was nevertheless incredibly lucky to be a part of a very warm and kind and supportive and understanding family, and being influenced by not only the Bible, but also by the works of William Shakespeare, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and Charlotte Bronte, she would eventually start withdrawing more and more from social life, until eventually we would get to the period known as roughly the first half of the 1860s, known as her most productive writing period, when she would also befriend the owner and the editor-in-chief of a newspaper that would eventually end up publishing the very few poems, or a part of the very few poems ever published in her lifetime. I think they were 12 in total, and even those were published anonymously, and they were heavily edited and altered with conventionalized punctuation and formal titles and stuff like that, much to her distress and to her dismay. She never married, and declining health eventually took most of the people she was ever close to, including her mother and her father, and she herself would eventually die at the age of 55, so pretty young. We see all of that in the film and much more, and yes, the film is essentially about Emily Dickinson, but all of the other characters are incredibly important as well, and they are very well fleshed out, they are very, very three-dimensional, and their very sincere reactions to everything that happens around them really functions exceptionally to give us the possibility to detect some very key characteristics about them, and to detect the essence of the people being portrayed in front of us. Her brother's reaction to when her father refuses to let him take part in the American Civil War, and his disappointment about that. Emily's reaction to discovering that her brother is cheating on her sister-in-law, and her disappointment about that. Her sister's very commending compassion and understanding she offers Emily in her most troublesome moments. Her mother's very laid-back composure and sort of very limited intellectual and social skills, but sort of intentionally so, because she even says a line I absolutely loved in the film, that she prefers to listen and to remain silent, because that way her prejudice doesn't seem like an opinion. Wow, you really do get a very, very clear sense of what these people are like. Every moment in the film, every scene just eases into the other with spectacular seamlessness and fluidity, and the film is not all gloomy. It's actually sometimes, especially in its first half, it can be quite funny. It has a lot of tender moments, and it's not just about being underappreciated in your lifetime as an artist. It's about so much more. It's about family, it's about friendship, it's about eliminating bullshit from your life, such as religion religious dogma and blind faith. It's about finding inspiration in life, even in its most darkest corners. And it's about also knowing that you're a lot smarter than other people and just having fun with that. The dialogue in the film is great. The film is all dialogue, basically, from beginning until the end. It's very high class. It really demands your attention. And being so high class and so witty, it really makes the very frivolous bantering and wisecracking between Emily, her sister, and her best friend all the more enjoyable. Emily Dickinson was a smart, free-thinking, and independent woman who really knew her way with words and who was really not afraid to call you out on your idiocy, sometimes even without you noticing it, using humor, using puns, using irony, using satire, and that was also something that transcended into her poetry as well. She was also not afraid to smash a dish given to her by her father because it was dirty. That was absolutely one of the funniest and most unexpected moments in the film. And yeah, generally speaking, the film is also about being a woman in the 19th century and being just absolutely being a single woman, being a married woman, being a woman with aspirations, being looked down upon, and being disregarded for simply having a vagina. And it's quite a shame, and despite the fact that now Emily Dickinson is considered to be a very innovative and revolutionary and ahead of her time and a proto-modernist poet, she was also a very kind and very endearing person as well. And because she was struck by so many losses and tragedies and disappointments during her life, eventually led her to just losing any interest in any sort of social matters at all. And, that's a shame that creates quite a contrast, because no one truly wants to be alone or lonely. But sometimes during life we are pushed to the point of thinking that is the only thing that could give us any sort of solace. And there's a very interesting conversation during the film she has with her sister-in-law, in which she says to Emily that in matters of the soul you are rigorous, and her response to that is, look, yeah, rigor is no substitute for happiness, and I have a routine, and that is God's only concession to a no-hoper. And that just goes to show you that sometimes the most talented and most inspired people are also the most unfulfilled. It's quite a melancholic and quite depressing thought. That was the case for a lot of incredibly talented artists. That was the case for Emily Dickinson as well. So I absolutely loved this film. It's incredibly nuanced, it's incredibly well made, it's very rich, and every performance is incredible, and Cynthia Nixon's performance as Emily Dickinson is fantastic. Hands down, one of my favorite performances of any film from the past 2 years. Probably be my favorite performance of any film from the past 2 years. It's absolutely not for everyone. I think the discrepancy between the audience and the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes is proof of that. I think you really have to be into these sort of elegant, slow-paced, very sort of uneventful and very, very poetic and very high-class, high-quality dialogue-driven biographical films. If that's your thing, and especially if you're interested in slightly interested in the life of Emily Dickinson, I think you will get a kick out of this. I love this film. I absolutely recommend it. My question to you guys would be, it's quite possible that I already asked this question, probably even several times before, what is your favorite biographical film? Simple. Thanks for watching my review. I really hope you enjoyed it. I haven't done a review in quite a while, so I'm feeling a little bit rusty. If you have enjoyed it, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so I can see you guys later with other reviews. And until then, folks, as always, don't forget to stay cool, stay awesome, and goodbye.